Welcome back to Point Blank. We're on the hot topic of Singlish, close to everyone's heart. If you're a Singaporean, I'm sure you're interested about it. We did a couple of things just now. We have with us some guests in our living room. But first, before we continue, we're going to look at a few comments. People are pretty riled, it seems, on the internet. Let's take a look at a certain Cervantes. He says, or she says, I'm getting fed up of going to food courts and having to speak mainland Chinese as the workers refuse to learn English. Isn't English our national language? Shouldn't our foreign talent learn English if they are going to integrate into our society?
Wow, an angry food lover.
Probably got scolded by someone before in Mandarin. Yeah. So you're from, Miss Lau, you are from the Singapore Retailers Association. So this question is right up your alley. Yeah? What do you think of that?
It happens. This is quite interesting because the other day I was just talking to somebody who trains service workers, in the spoken English. And she was telling me that one of the participants in the class was very resistant to English. She just found that English was not the language that appealed to her. She had no desire to learn the language. And when she was offered this job in Singapore, she was from PRC. And in her head, we are 70% Chinese. And if we are 70% Chinese, what is the problem in, being able to make do with Chinese, with Mandarin? So she thought it was okay for her to come here, not being able to speak English. But the other thing that was interesting also, I found out from this trainer and in her conversations with her participants, was that what I mentioned earlier, when they learn very formal English, and when they have an encounter with us saying, that one got my size or not, they can't make head or tail of it, and they back off. They get scared, they get back off, and then they become very nervous about the next encounter.
And they revert into their old self.
That's right. Or they get into a shell, they go into their shell, and they just dare not approach any customers. So it works both ways. So one, yes, the service staff could be very resistant and thinking that I can make do without being able to speak English. After all, you go onto the buses and MRTs, like I said, most people speak Mandarin, and not proper English, so to speak. And then you have this other bunch of people who know the language but do not have confidence because they get scared.
So they dare not wander out of their comfort zone. Okay,
Yeah.
we have Cervantes again. Seems to be like having a conversation with us, which is great. He says, yes, I got told off for not understanding Chinese as I am Chinese, but I prefer to converse in English. So what's wrong with that? It's my choice.
This is very interesting. Just want to share a couple of experiences. There was one day I went into this food court, so I ordered this thing, I placed my order in English. And this lady behind the counter, she obviously understood me, but her response was in Mandarin. She refused to say a word in English, right? And because I was in a hurry, I gave way. I switched to Mandarin, and what she was telling me was that what I wanted wasn't available, and she offered me an alternative. But interestingly enough, the next day, I went to a service station. I just collected my car after I had it serviced. And this guy from the workshop was there, workshop technician, And before I spoke to him, I heard him talking to another customer in Mandarin and in dialect. Oh, he went, fluent as anything. And after that person left, I spoke to him. In English. Mm-hmm. He responded in English. I could tell that he was not comfortable in that language. I could tell that he was struggling. But I was being a little bit cheeky that day. I wanted to test him and see how far he would go, right?
You did your own test, huh?
So I didn't switch. But amazingly, what amazed me was that he persevered and he continued in English, struggling through it as he did. And throughout the whole conversation, not a single word of Mandarin or dialect slipped out. He understood me, I understood him. If there's anybody that I would say would make it good, in making an attempt to learn proper English, standard English, and speaking it later, I'd say that somebody with this kind of perseverance and determination would do it. The rest of us, maybe we are a little bit blasé. Maybe, sometimes we think that we have arrived.
Take for granted that we speak English.
Yeah,
we assume.
Yeah, we assume, and then we don't move any further.
Yeah, from the perspective of the education system, do you see this sort of perseverance among your ex-students? Do you see this kind of perseverance among your classmates and all that to learn English or to keep pressing on even if, it's tough?
No kid is the same. No one is the same. I mean, ultimately, like as mentioned, it's true because I've conducted remedial lessons for my children when I was teaching. Not everybody turned up. And that is very telling. If you really, really came to Singapore, if you are really keen and interested in your studies, you will definitely turn up. And I didn't punish the child or the children, but I just told them very frankly, you're not going to progress, you're not going to do anything because help is at hand, you refuse it. So, yeah, I do think that if a child doesn't want to do it, you can't help.
Yeah, perseverance is really key. So, Eileen, I know you have actually a couple of foreign friends among your classmates. How are they persevering, or how were they, sort of pressing on in terms of learning English?
I had this PRC friend. She insisted in messaging me in English, even though sometimes I couldn't really understand. Then I asked her, why not she change back to Chinese? Then she said that she want to learn English. She want to do it her best. And then even though when she presented in class in English, everybody laughed because we didn't see her speak in English before. She had some funny sounds. But then she still persevered. Then I can see that she was very determined. Yeah.
So there are people like that around.
Oh, definitely. But I think it's a minority.
You think so?
Yep.
Oh, I wonder what the rest of Singapore thinks. So, yeah, Brian.
Yeah, if you're just joining us, I did a small little English test to a few Singaporeans. And after looking at the results of the test, I just had to go on and ask Singaporeans what they thought of our standard of English, the reasons why, and of course how we can improve. This is what they told me. Across the board in Singapore, do you think we as Singaporeans speak good English?
Not very.
Why do you think so?
Probably everybody is talking homegrown English, a local English. Yeah, not that English that we learn in school.
I think normal conversation is still alright, but to compare to those countries that is already, in English, I think it's still far.
I think generally it should be better already, because I think in the schools, I think more people are more competent and more fluent in the language.
I think it's not very good. Yeah, because they got a lot of slang words and local slang words like la and stuff.
English in Singapore?
Never mind.
It's bad. Honestly, I think it's really bad.
What is your take on colloquialisms in our English language?
Well, I think it adds a bit of uniqueness to our culture here. So I think it's even for me, I speak, right. Sometimes when I speak with my friends, you find that there's an identity, which I think makes Singapore very unique. It's very much like our food and our cuisine and our arts here.
I think it's fine because every country has their own colloquialisms. Yeah, so it's fine for Singapore to have their own brand of English.
I think it's the way we are brought up, because we are multi-race. So English is basically not our so-called mother tongue. So of course, compared to those countries that is their mother tongue, I think we are far disadvantaged.
So you think the problem is both in schools and in the home?
Yeah. So at home they speak like that. They come to school and everybody speaks like that, so they go back speaking like that as well.
And I think they are more deep-rooted in their own culture. Let's say if you're Malay, Chinese, or even Indian, you're probably too deep-rooted. And again, in terms of the family background as well, and also in terms of the social background in which they are at. So that's why I think that becomes a stumbling block for them to actually try to pick up the English language.
Because they have a second language, so they will mix with the second language or they will speak Singlish.
We teach them correct English at school, at home, but when they go to school, they pick up different spoken English. They pick up a lot of different things from school. It's the different students who actually speak different things.
We have our own unique form of English, of course, but we have to work on, I think it's the way we are taught the English language.
What do you think we can do to improve the standard of English in Singapore?
Better teachers, I guess. I mean, in this case, I think we need foreign teachers.
So do you think the improvement lies at home or in the schools?
It's both.
I mean, there is a lot of things like reading books, a lot of reading to be done. Practice parents speak good English at home.
Homes. rather than in schools, because the schools have already done their best. Most of the subjects are carried out in English. So there's no excuse in terms of why the English language is not being spoken.
Yeah, I think families should be the one who give more support into improving the English.
I mean, we've been hearing too much of Singlish, of course. But at the same time, we are able to differentiate between Singlish and proper English, and when to use when.
Already we have comments in relation to that video that we just watched. A little kid says, well, it's true enough that the standard of a language is very important. It's more important that you are able to express your intention. As I've reiterated in my previous post, languages are expressive tools. The main purpose of it is to serve as a medium to express intentions among both parties. And hence, in terms of speaking, being proficient to a certain standard is equally important. Likewise, being adaptive to change your language to a common denominator among both parties is also crucial. So, we watched that video. We have this comment. What does everyone think?
The whole idea about the whole identity thing?
Yeah, about, expression, that you just need to be understood about,
Then we might as well speak pidgin instead.
Pidgin English.
Yeah, might as well, because it's understandable, right? Then we can just answer in numbers.
And Singapore will just live in our own little bubble.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, but I think he has a point there, because what he's saying is that we have to be adaptable, right? And we have to make sure that we understand each other, which was exactly what we were saying earlier.
The context.
The context.
Situation,
Yes, we can understand each other within your own community, within your own circle of friends and so on. You can speak Singlish till the cows come home, and that's fine because you understand each other. You can speak Mandarin with English words, Malay words, whatever, all thrown in. But what he's saying is that we have to adapt to the situation to make sure that whoever it is that you are communicating with also understands you, and that is true communication. So, and this is what we are saying. If you don't know what is a universally understood form of English, and you just say, I was just reading one of the other comments, this guy says, who gives a toss, right? Yeah, you don't have to give a toss, but if you don't want to interact with the world, fine, you don't have to give a toss about what standard English is. But if you want to go into the global arena and speak with everybody else and get yourselves understood by everybody else, then you have to wake up and see what your level of English is.
Yes, while I agree that Singlish is definitely a marker of our cultural identity. And we know that Singapore has no sort of history to speak of, except that we are a nation of migrant settlers. And so this Singlish is actually a very unique, emblem of our hybrid identity. But on the other hand, you also say, can people code switch? Can they switch from Singlish to standard English so whenever we go, we are global citizens now. So everywhere we track in the world, can we be understood? So that's the problem. Do you think it's the teacher's fault?
Oh, it's always us.
Victimized.
We are only with the kids for how many hours a day? Think about it. It's the parents and it's what you do outside of the class, what you do in your CCA, what you do in the canteen when you're the students, what you do when you go to the mall and shop, for the latest clothes and stuff. It's how you speak then, because it is not, practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. That's the thing.
Yeah, true words from a teacher. How about Eileen? Do you think it's all your teacher's fault?
No, I think it's the culture I'm in, my classmates, what kind of English do they speak? Yeah.
So it's very influenced by the environment and who's around you. That's true. Well, we're going to for a quick break right now, but we'll be back on more on broken English, on Singlish and standard English. So stay with us after the break.